on Saturday, 12 March 1921, met all those who contributed to drawing the policy of the Middle East in appointing and finding rulers and kings for this region at the Hotel of Semiramis in Cairo in order to attend a conference. There was the only woman invited to the conference who know more about the complexities of the Middle East than the others. She was a modern woman with the green eyes and brown hair, similar to the characters of the George Bernard Shaw show plays, where she wore many French clothes and maintained British behavior when she visited the tents of the sheikhs and desert clans. She was able to convince Winston Churchill, the colonial secretary at that time, to appoint Faisal ibn al-Sharif Hussein as the first king of Iraq. This woman was Gertrude Margaret Lothian Bell. So, who is this woman? Gertrude Bell was born on 14 July 1868 in Washington, Newhall, County Durham, England, from a rich family. Since her childhood, she has a daring personality. Her mother died when she was 3 years old. At the age of 16, she went to the University of Oxford History Department, graduating in 2 years. She was the first girl to receive a first-class honors degree in the history. She traveled to Iran in May 1892 to visit her uncle, Sir Frank Laslin, the British ambassador to Tehran, where she gave impression and description of that country in her book Persian Pictures. Although Persia and Persian literature initially influenced her, the Arab region later took her interest. Gertrude read Charles Dietz' book on his travels in the Arab lands, so she attracted of Arab life and Arabic literature. Between 1899 and 1905, she visited Palestine and Syria on a trip from Jerusalem to Damascus. She became acquainted with the Druze living in Mount Ad-Duruz, and after a 5-hour journey on the back of camel, she met with the two archaeologists, Campbell Thompson and Thomas Edward Lawrence, or Lawrence of Arabia. Although they said they were working on explorations, but at the same time they were watching the Germans in the process of the Berlin-Baghdad railway project. She explained her journey in her book, which published in 1907 under the title The Desert and the Sun. In January 1909, she went to Iraq. She discovered the fortress of Al-Aghdar, located nearly 50 kilometers south of Karbala. And in the late 1913, Bell arrived in Damascus and made plans for an exploration trip to the Shamian desert and to enter to the Arabian Peninsula, where she explored desert lands between 1913 and 1914. She met many tribal sheikhs there. After the outbreak of First World War and the Ottoman state joining the war with the Germans, Bell presented many maps to the British government explaining the reality of the desert and the nature of the tribal, the sheikhs. In November 1915, she was summoned to the Arab Bureau in Cairo, the British intelligence office for the Arab world, under the command of General Gilbert Kelton, in order to benefit from their knowledge of Arab affairs, to encourage Arab forces to join with the British in their war against the Turkish armies. She was coordinating between Arab leaders and the Arab Bureau. In March 1916, she arrived in Basra, southern Iraq, which was occupied by British forces in November 1914, in order to help British Governor Percy Cox in Iraq. And when the British forces occupied Baghdad on 10 March 1917, Percy Cox awarded Bell the job of Secretary of the Governor for the Affairs of the East. After the end of the First World War and the collapse of the Ottoman Empire in the late January 1919, they asked her to study the current status and the future options for leadership in Mesopotamia, Iraq. She wrote a report which it considered to be unofficial references to the British. This report was sent to the English Parliament, which took a lot of media attention in Britain. It consists of 149 pages under the title Review of the Civil Administration of Mesopotamia, which provided a detailed study of the situation of the country and the region at that time. When Faisal arrived in Iraq in June 1921, Bell became his personal and political advisor. She says in one of the letters to her father after the coronation of Faisal on the throne of Iraq, 1921.
Faisal invited me to have tea with him and spend a happy hour discussing the country's desert borders, the national flag and the personal flag of the king. We agreed that the king's flag is the same as the Hijaz flag, with the addition of a golden crown.
She was interested in local and tribal affairs and oversaw the selection of those indicated to the important position in the new Iraqi government. She became the important figure in the government, and because of her influence on the new king, she was nicknamed the Khatun, means the lady. And getting closer to her and gaining her interest and satisfaction became a goal for many politicians. She said,
I have recently felt a strong sense of how our Arab friends want to take our advice, that they come to me not only to ask advice about their current behavior, but also to ask me about the future of the country.
In addition, in her political work, she was interested in Iraq archaeology and exploration. Between 1923 and 1926, she worked on the establishment of an archaeological museum in Baghdad, and this museum became in her director. She loved Iraq and became her first country. She expressed it in one of her letters to her father.
I'm not interested in going back to London. I love Baghdad and I love Iraq. That is a release full of movement and activity, and talked many romantic things there and affect my entity.
Gertrude Bell has faced some health and family problems, from ill health to pulmonary disease. Family problems because her brother died of typhoid in England, and her family's financial crisis. She had a feel of isolation and depression, which led her to a suicide. On 12 July 1926, Bell was discovered dead of an apparent overdose of sleeping pills. She was buried in the British cemetery in Baghdad.